Good evening to all the respected dignitaries and members. I, C. Ritu Agarwal, on behalf of Directex Committee of ICI, welcomes you all to the seventh session of the live webinar series on the Income Tax Act 2025. I want to extend my gratitude for the opportunity to the Directex Committee, Chairman C. A. Piyush Shajir sir and Vice Chairman C. A. Vishnu Agarwal sir. I have the honor to introduce CA Piyush Chajed sir, Chairman Direct Tax Committee, under whose guidance the committee continues to deliver high quality technical programs. Sir is Sir brings 25 years of extensive expertise as a senior partner at Chajed Doshi and Company, Chartered Accountants, a distinguished CA firm located in Mumbai. Sir is an expert in tax litigation and advisory. Sir has made significant contribution to the finance and accountancy landscape on both national and international levels. Notably, Sir was a member of Central Council of ICI from 22 to 25 and for the second term from 25 to 29. He served all the three pivotal standing committees executive examination and finance, showcasing his multifaceted understanding of the profession. Sir is currently chairman of Direct Tax Committee and vice chairman of Expert Advisory Committee. Sir was a member of working committee of the Asian Federation of
Actually,
Accountants.
briefly.
With this, I request
Yeah.
Sir to please take the charge.
Yeah. Thank you very much, CA Ritu Agarwal, who would be moderating this session. Thank you for your introduction, who is a managing committee member of Vasai branch of our WISC of ICA. I welcome IRS Pradumna Kumarji to this session, joint session, wherein the Income Tax Department has joined hands as a publication partner. I welcome you all. I welcome CA Tushar Hemanaji, who's also a senior advocate, and I always refer him a chartered accountant because he's a chartered accountant also. Thank you very much for taking this session. My younger brother, I would say, a very learned expert in direct tax, the vice chairman, CA Vishnu Agarwal, who has taken a great initiative in this year in trying to see that as far as direct tax learning is concerned, we can reach through these webinars in each and every corner of India and also as well as physical programs. So thank you very much. It is, in fact, why I'm trying to say you this, because we are at the end of our this council term, which is ending on 12th of February. And I was so privileged to have CA Vishnu Agarwalji as my vice chairman, whereby I could have actually relaxed and look into it, wherein he has looked into all such programs, all such activities of DTC. Thank you very much, CA Vishnu Agarwalji, for being there. And very good evening to all the participants once again for joining this seventh webinar. Of course, there are many webinars. I'm sure Vishnu Agarwalji would be telling you about what was our year-round activity. But briefly, I will try to cover up. But as far as this seventh webinar on Income Tax Act 2025 is concerned, wherein we are trying to reach to the general members, trying to reach other people also, and we are also fortunate that representatives from the department are always there and they are also trying to address the members. The idea of such webinars is to sensitize the members about what has gone into Income Tax Act 2025, what is in store, which will be coming into force from 1st April 2026. I do know the budget is awaited. Before we come for the next session, I think so 8th session will happen before the budget, which is now scheduled on 28th of this month. But on 1st of February, I expect certain changes also coming to Income Tax Act 2025. So the way it stands today, probably when it gets implemented, there will be certain amendments to budget, which are policy amendments, obviously, which any government, which any of course, I would say board would like to, and which would be important for the Indian economy, those changes would be coming in. I am talking about the budget very importantly because we were involved as a direct tax committee when the budget making was going, and we were invited by the chairman CBDT to give our presentation on pre-budget. And on 27th of October, we gave our presentation and we gave our detailed suggestions also on Income Tax Act 2025. I am sure those would be considered. And one of the very landmark suggestions, which now even the media has been discussing, that whether joint tax returns amongst these spouses would come in. Let's keep fingers crossed, but I'm sure a lot of good things are in store, but only it will be open when it comes on 1st of February 2025. At this time, I would also thank you and congratulate Income Tax Department. Of course, Prabhu Kumar is there who is representing, but I laud your efforts which have gone in making of this Income Tax Act 2025, because I know, and as a direct tax committee and as institute, we were involved since inception. And inception means when July 2024, that is 23rd July 2024, when the Finance Act 2024 bill was introduced, and Honorable Finance Minister announced that we would be undertaking a comprehensive review. And hereafter, in 1st October, I think so, and important stakeholders' suggestions were sought by CBDT through their website. And introducing bill on 13th of February 2025, just imagine, only 4 months time, 5 months time, what of super work has been done. I know a lot of man hours, a lot of officials from the department were involved in making it of this act, and I really appreciate on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, I place on record the appreciation of the CBDT, Income Tax Department, all the people, all the officers who were involved in this making. Since if you want to make a law with a very important objectives of simplifying it, to reduce litigations, make it concise within the 4 months, 3 to 4 months period of time, it's very difficult. But we applaud on behalf of Institute. I would request Pradhan Kumarji to please carry it. Our congratulations and our best wishes to the department. Of course, I will not take much of time because we have to hear my vice chairman also, and of course, Representative Pradhan Kumarji also, and then the speaker would be covering the topic of search and seizure. I will be, of course, talking on the other subjects also, what DTC is doing, but I have 2 sessions before I demit my office as a chairman, Direct Tax Committee on 12th of Feb. And before that, definitely we will also discuss with all the members what was the activity which was done. But for today, I end my speech. A very good evening to all of you once again. I hope you have a beautiful 2 hours, a great learning on a very important topic, search and seizure, because a lot of good amendments are there in search and seizure, which you would have heard through newspapers also. A lot of powers, a lot of changes, though changes may be minimal, but there could be some implications out of it. And those changes may be relevant also. I'm sure the speaker today, who is one of the best faculty, I would say, is an expert, especially in the search and seizure, would be covering this and would look into all those intricacies. So thank you very much once again, all of you. Over to you, Rituji.
Thank you so much, sir, for the warm welcome address and for setting the tone for today's technical significant session. Now I take the privilege to introduce our Vice Chairman Direct Tax Committee, CA Vishnu Agarwal, sir. CA Vishnu Kumar Agarwal, sir, is a Central Council member of ICI for the term 25 to 29. Sir is currently serving as the Vice Chairman of CP Committee and the Direct Tax Committee of ICI. Additionally, he is an esteemed member of several key committees, including the Standing Committee, Executive Committee, Management Committee, and Finance Committee of ICI. Sir is chartered accountant with over 2 decades of experience and specialized in income tax matters. With extensive expertise in search and survey proceedings, Benami and black money proceedings, ITAT proceedings, and income tax litigation. Sir, as a renowned speaker and author, he has delivered numerous lectures on direct tax and litigation matters across various platforms. Sir is also authored the book Landmark Judgment of Income Tax, which serves as a valuable reference for the tax professionals. With this, I invite Sir to address our members.
Very good evening, friends. Our Honorable Additional Commissioner of Income Tax, Sri Pradyuman Kumar Singh ji. He has done very good work when he was in the investigation wing at Delhi, and he has done the search on the different areas, like on the Chinese companies and other field, on the trade. Apart from the traditional search, he has done very sharp, very intelligent person. And today if we have with us Pradyuman Kumar Singh ji, thank you very much, sir. for today's addressing our chartered accountants. Our today's speaker, Tushar Hemani ji, again very learned and a very sharp chartered accountant come advocate from Ahmedabad. Our chairman of the direct tax committee, CA Piyush Chhajed ji, Ritu Agrawal ji, managing committee member of the Vasai branch and today's session moderator. Friends, today's topic assigned to our speaker, search and seizure in the new Income Tax Act. Search done by the department, but how to present the case before the investigation wing central circle and the ITAT and the CI before the central circle CIT appeal is a very much art. And today Tushar Hemani ji will close by close and section by section and what is the changes in the new Income Tax Act and the uh, old Income Tax Act 1961. He will explain to us. Friends, in this particular calendar year, we have done under the direct tax committee. The most importantly, we have revised our guidance note under section 44AB, which is tax audit. And the first time under the direct tax committee, we have came out with the new Income Tax Act 2025, and which is appreciated by each and every member, and more than 10,000 copies this year we have published from the our direct tax committee. And most particularly for our young member chartered accountant, we have also came out with the ITR checklist. Apart from this, our chairman has already said that we have given the pre-budget memorandum and everything, and time to time we have represented before the CBDT for the benefit of our each and every member. Today we have with us Pradumant Kumar Singh ji and Tushar Hemani ji, so I will not take much of the time. And I thanks to my each and every member, because every time more than 2,500 and 3,000 chartered accountant is listening this particular webinar on the new Income Tax Act 2025. For popularizing, sir, this Income Tax Act 2025, we are again doing we have 190 branch across the country, sir, and each and every branches we are doing the physical program as well as the webinars jointly with the income tax department and jointly with some of the NGOs to popularize with each and every member, each and every citizen of the India for the Income Tax Act 2025. With these words, once again, I thanks to the Direct Tax Committee to organize under the leadership of the Piyush Chhajedi, our chairman, because he has given free hand to me for organizing all the physical program as well as the webinar. So I thanks to our chairman also, Piyush Chhajedi, and our leadership, Nanda sir, our president sir, CS Nanda ji, and Prasanna Kumar ji, vice president. Once only my request to each and every member present here on the 30th January and 31st January and 1st Feb, we have the very good program at the Noida. This is the WOFA. In that, more than 10,000 chartered accountant is attending across the world. So if you have not registered for this particular program, so I request everyone you register for the WOFA. It is only one-time opportunity to interact with the 10,000 chartered accountant, more than 200 speakers, not only from India, from across the world. The speakers are coming. So I request only 5 to 10 days is left for this particular program. So I request everyone, if you have not joined this particular WOFA, you're not registered for the WOFA, you just registered for this particular program. It is not a seminar or conference. It is the only one-time achievement program. Thank you, friends.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful words and providing valuable direction for today's deliberation. We are honored to have Shri Pradumna Kumar Singh, IRS, Additional Commissioner of Income Tax, AU 61, for the special address. I take the opportunity to introduce Sir. Presently, Sir is posted as Additional Commissioner of Income Tax, Unit 61, Delhi, and also holding additional charge of Additional CIT Appeals 11, Delhi. With over 16 years of dedicated service as an IRS officer in the Income Tax Department, Sir have extensive experience across various domains including investigation, compliance management, assessment, and headquarter related work. His tenure includes more than 3 years of regular service in Level 13, showcasing his commitment and expertise in the field. Sir has also worked as Deputy Director Investigation at Ghaziabad, UP. and as Additional Director of Income Tax Investigation at Delhi. Sir have led numerous high impact operations and unearthed major tax evasions, including new modus operandi of tax evasion. Sir have worked for 6 years in investigation wing of Income Tax Department. I request Sir to please address our members.
Yeah, thank you, Rituji. Uh, Good evening, respected Chairman DTC Sri Piyush ji, Vice Chairman Sri Vishnu ji, and today's Chief Speaker Sri Tushar Hemani ji, and other respected dignitaries, and uh, all respected fraternity of the Chartered Accountants. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, very much audible.
Yeah. So I have been given the topic for in relation to search and seizure as well as survey comparative provisions. So I'll just share the PPT so that it will be easy for us to go through. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
That PPT is visible, no? Isn't?
PPT is not visible, sir. It is showing some Zoom screen.
One second. Now? Okay, one second. Now it is. So before starting, I'll just apprise that I already told by Chairman DTC and Vice Chairman DTC that how much effort the department has taken to bring the new Income Tax Act, and your fraternity has been very instrumental in guiding the department and providing the relevant inputs to improve upon in terms of clarifying the provisions. So the mandate from the government was not to amend anything specifically, only to simplify, make it clear, and at least it should be understandable by a graduate person, not by the layman. So it was that was the expected mandate. So in this background, in terms of search and seizure, let me first clarify that there is no substantial change in terms of search and seizure related provisions or survey related provisions. There are certain changes which are based on the practice evolved over a period of time, which were not explicitly mentioned in the relevant provisions of the Income Tax Act 1961. So those changes, if we can say, so it is a clarificatory in nature and filling the gap between what was stated in the 1961 Act and what was being practiced during over a period of time. So we'll go through this thing in brief. So if you see that it is related to examination powers, like someone issuing the summons. So if you see, these major changes are that during the such proceedings also summons can be issued. So it was being issued, though it was not explicitly mentioned in the 131 1A provisions. So now it has been made it clear under section 246 2C that before as well as during the search also summons can be issued and any person can be examined. Then for this, during the under this examination and oath, here it was not very much clear at that time. Like any person can be examined at the time of, during the search, whether his or her name was on the search warrant or not, if the person is present on the premises. And the examination can be related to any information in the electronic form available or on the computer systems. So these are the major explicit insertions in the provisions. And then authorized officers list. Though earlier it was that deputy director was included, but now, because while simplifying these things, all these things have been brought in the definition section, and in normal other provisions it is written only like assistant director. Here it is written, and the other designations have been covered under through the definition section. Then inclusion of electronic and digital records. So because when this 1961 Act was brought in, at that time there was no concept of electronic or digital records. Over a period of time, now if we see during the search and seizure provisions, even in almost in last 5 6 years, earlier we used to seize more than 70 80 90% data in physical format, paper and other things. Now it is almost 98 99% seizure is in the electronic form. So in order to incorporate those things explicitly in the provisions, these changes have been made. Like in section 247, the information in electronic form or on a computer system. Then definition references books are books of accounts. So it explicitly mentions information in electronic form and computer systems. So this 2025 Act expands triggers to include non-production of electronic information or data on computer systems. Then circumstances for search. Here also it in that circumstances incorporates that any information in electronic form or on a computer systems, if the person is failing to produce that thing, so that also can be a basis to reason to believe for conducting a search by the competent authority. Then powers during the search. Earlier, we used to like the seize books and documents. Now it requires access codes, override access codes, seize computer systems and electronic information, make extracts and copies. So these are only in practice we have been doing in recent past also and still doing, even though this act has not come into practice. So in a way, liberally interpreting the sections and requirement of the department. But in the new act it has been explicitly mentioned that even if codes are there, so the searched person is expected to give the access to that code, and the department can override their access codes to maintain this sanctity of the information available there. Even computer system can be seized, electronic ones, so all those things are there. So it is only that incorporating all those things which are already in the practice and which is very much required for the department to do the duty given by the government. Then there over a period of time, certain case that litigation have taken place in the past. Based on that thing, certain decisions, certain observations and decisions were by the courts. So in order to clarify, like books of accounts, electronic records, etc. So these have been also been tried to incorporate, so that there should not be any ambiguity in terms of interpreting by the department vis-a-vis interpretation by the professionals or the search persons. So, like Madras High Court, they held that amendment clarifying inclusion of electronic records is clarificatory. Electronic data on pen drives, cloud falls within books of accounts. Then GSNR Rise Industries case, they have also held that retrieved from CPU, not necessarily books of account definition covers regular books maintained for business. So all those things are there. So based on that, the changes have been made in the relevant provisions of the Act. Then, because most of the businesses, all those books and data are maintained in the digital space. So based on in considering all those aspects, the changes have been made. Like this 2025 Act explicitly extends to computer systems, virtual space as well as digital space. And then operational implications will be like cloning, imaging of drives, access to cloud servers, seizure of virtual digital assets. So all those things have been made very explicitly. It has been mentioned in the relevant provisions. Then there is a definition of computer systems. So Section 261E of 2025 Act defines computer system to mean computers, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, digital and electronic data storage devices, and includes remote server or cloud server or virtual digital spaces. This we have also faced in case of certain cases where the entities are working in India, but their data is maintained on are hosted on the servers which are not in the geographical boundaries of the country. So there we faced a lot of challenges. So in order to remove those challenges and to get the complete access to the data, all these changes have been made based on our own experience. So if we see summary that explicit statutory definition in 2025 Act removes ambiguity and includes cloud and remote servers. Then this virtual digital space and this virtual digital assets, these definitions have also been incorporated. It brings email, social media, wallets, crypto assets within the search scope. But the this I think this has become a new this became at that time news item also, that the department will have complete access to Gmail and other things. So I just want to clarify this even today when we are conducting searches, we have complete access and we are using these things. We are getting the dump. And we are analyzing those things. So this is not new, nothing new that some other another extra power has been given to the department through this new act. This has been there. Only thing was that because when this 1961 act was brought in, at that time these concepts were not there, so it was not very explicitly mentioned in that act. And but in 2025 acts, considering that this has become more regular feature and very much used, and information is spread over different kind of applications, different kind of servers, different type of digital devices, to in order to bridge the gap, these provisions have been made in. Then there was no concept of like this. It was not clearly mentioned ki if some asset is there in the foreign, because Black Money Act is a separate act. So in order to, though it is very closely linked and interpreted with with Income Tax Act 1961, but there was no specific mention that if some foreign asset is not disclosed, whether that search can be conducted or not conducted. So now it has been made clear that it covers the undisclosed foreign income and assets under Black Money Act also. Then this scope of search, that information related to in 1961 Act, the scope was a search when person in possession of specified assets representing undisclosed income and property. This is a little bit tricky change, as per my understanding, because we have been conducting searches like if we have the information in our possession and reason to believe that a person A is having information relating to some assets of person B who is under search, but the person A is not directly subject to search. So still we were covering that thing in consequential warrants or in the original warrant also. But this 2025 Act, it clarifies that any person, if the person is in possession of information related to specified assets, not only physical possession. So even the person is not having that physical possession of a particular asset of a searched person, even then also that person can be subject to search to unearth that information and get the possession of that information, which can further lead to get undisclosed information about the undisclosed assets. So it broadens the scope to such persons who are the information holders, like data custodians, intermediaries, because these people, these persons have become very critical from the department's point of view in to get the information which is not disclosed to the department. Then this impracticable seizure bank accounts and lockers. So earlier that lockers related and bank accounts related provisions was not very clear in terms of their seizure and putting the prohibitory orders. So now that has been brought in clearly and explicitly in the act. And like 2025 Act explicitly includes bank accounts, lockers, and computer systems under Section 247(4), where seizure is not practicable. And this also explicitly recognizes the impracticable seizure provisions for lockers, accounts, and computer systems, which were missing in the 1961 Act. Though in practice, different divisions of the investigation wing in the different area, they were doing the little bit slightly different practices in handling the lockers found during the search. Then presumption of exchange by electronic devices. So now 2025 Act, it extends presumptions to electronic records, data, and communication. So the earlier that presumption as to ownership and contents of books and documents found, it was written there, and the onus of explaining those was on the person from whom custody those information was received or seized. Now this also it is just broadens the definition and it includes the electronic records, data, and communication, etc. Time limit for handing over seized items. So this 132(9), even we were also at that time a bit confused at times why this particular provision is there, because our search and seizure manual used to talk about something different. So here the word was written also shall be. So now they have clarified and they have aligned with the this period given in the block assessment that search related assessments provisions, that 180 days. So this has been clearly mentioned that the time limit for handing over the seized material to the assessment division central circles is 180 days. So because the practical problem was that earlier when we used to seize the books of accounts, etc., it was readily available for analysis and doing the uh, 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 examining of the books. Now we are seizing most of the data in the digital format. So first, it needs to go through the digital forensic, wherein it has to be extracted, analyzed. Only then we can examine that thing. So aligning all those aspects, this particular provision has been brought in, and also it aligns with the period mentioned in the search related. They recently introduced this block assessment related search provisions wherein it was 180 days was given. Then recording of a statement during survey. So survey, there was no concept of recording the statement on oath. So now it has been made clear that during the survey proceedings also the statement can be recorded under oath. So it is not changing any purpose or anything. Only it is increasing the evidentiary value of the statement given during the survey proceedings. Earlier, officers used to take the route of that 131, issuing the 131 1A and etc. But now in the survey related provisions itself, this particular aspect has been covered in. So it rationalized for parity with section 131 and 132(4). And there were certain concerns regarding the including this that during the survey, if we are making it statement to be taken under oath, so there is nothing new. It is only it adds the evidentiary value. Whatever stated, it will have more evidentiary value. That's all. So certain changes have been made based on the judicial decisions in order to clarify those things and make it consistent with the legal principles and the practice. uh, undertaken by the department. Then there are certain digital transfer power servers. This is also just to align with these provisions available in the search and seizure things, where here also, because in the 1961 survey related provisions, the majorly things were relating to physical books of account, inspection of physical books of accounts and documents, manual verification of physical records, and any books of accounts and impounding up any books of accounts or other documents. So all three aspects: access to records, data verification, impounding power, all three things in 19 this Income Tax Act 2025, they includes the electronic form or computer systems, real-time verification of e-records and databases, and books of documents or computer system which can be impounded. It includes the this computer systems also. So the impact will be that it will ensure the department to get the complete access to the digital information. It will speeds up the compliance and improves accuracy. So this is all search and seizure. I have not specifically incorporated the assessment related provisions because those changes are recently made, I think in 2024 itself in the budget, and all those things have been just brought in the new Income Tax Act. So there is no change. So these are the changes, and from our side, our stand is that these all are clarificatory changes only to fill in the gap which was written in the Act of 1961 and which we were practicing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful deliberation. Your address has significantly enhanced our understanding of the provisions and practical nuance of Income Tax Act 2025. Now I take the privilege to introduce CA Tushar Hemani sir, a distinguished expert in search, survey and litigation matters. Sir is senior advocate practicing in the field of direct and indirect taxation, corporate, commercial, and fiscal laws before Honorable Supreme Court, High Court, and tribunals, commissions, and other judicial authorities. One of the youngest at bar to have conferred senior designation by the Gujarat High Court in the year 2019. Chairman of Direct Tax Committee of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners for the term 2025. Sir is Vice Chairman of AIFTP ITAT Bar Association Coordination Committee for the term 23, 24 and 25. President of Income Tax Appellate Tribunal Bar Association Ahmedabad for the term 2015 to 2017. Member of Direct Tax Committee of Gujarat Chambers of Commerce and Industries. Member of Legal Committee of All Gujarat Federation of Tax Consultant and Income Tax Bar, and many more. With this, I request Sir to please take the charge.
Thank you, Rituji. Honorable the Chairman, DTC, Piyush Bhai Chajet, Vice Chairman Vishnu Bhai, Departmental Representative Shri Pradyuman Ji, all fellow chartered accountants, a very good evening to all of you. My job is made much more easier by the departmental representative. He has clarified that these are all the changes which are in a way just to formalize the practices which were followed by the department. And therefore, today evening, my endeavor is how smoothly we can transform ourselves from 1961 Act to 2025 Act insofar as search related provisions are concerned. So over a period of now 1 hour till 16:45, we'll be going through the provisions of the search, survey, and block assessment. What I have done is I have prepared a Word file wherein both these provisions, namely the old provisions of 61 Act and the new provision of 25 Act, have been used in a side-by-side manner, in a comparable manner. So what we will be doing would be go through the provisions. I have highlighted some of the provisions, some changes which are material for the purpose of today's discussion. And in the process, we also would run through how the provisions are otherwise applicable, because you may not find many changes which are flowing from the scheme of the Act. However, what we are today doing is that once the 25 Act comes into play, how best we can prepare ourselves, because this has been a major landmark event as a country, and all of us are very eagerly awaiting the introduction of the new Act. And in fact, when I started the practice as a student sometime in 1987, I had the first glimpse of Income Tax Act, because my father was a chartered accountant. I was in 10th standard at that point in time, and he would regularly bring home the Income Tax Act. I would get amazed that how one can go through the entire act and remember so many things. Right from my early days of the practice in the late 90s, I never thought that I would be in a position to look at the new act, much less practice it. The present government has made it possible. Income tax department has done a wonderful job in converting the old act into a new one. The efforts are all much appreciated. As a lawyer, we are trained to criticize the things. All of us, the first human reaction to any new thing is to oppose it. But today, what we would be doing is we would be looking at the act positively and try to find out as to which are the things which are made easier as a taxpayer, and which are those red lights which has given more power to the income tax department so as to become an honest citizen. In fact, my advice to all my clients, including all the fellow chartered accountant, is always advise your client to pay your taxes honestly, keep the transparency intact. And now, with the onslaught of 2025 Act, one would realize that department has now covered almost all the loopholes which were earlier available, and therefore, if not by choice, by compulsion, become an honest citizen and try and pay your taxes and keep your affairs within the four corners of law. With this, friends, let us look at the provisions and try to figure out as to how those provisions can be seamlessly integrated from old to the new act. Let us start with the search provision. My screen is shared. Now I'll start from the first section. You would find here that the language is as amended by Finance Act 2025. So ITA 1961, we would call it the old act, though it is still the very much the act which is in operation. Therefore, I may not be right in calling it an old act, but nonetheless, for the purpose of understanding, we call it the existing act as 1961 Act and 2025 Act, which is the proposed act. Look at the language of the opening section 132(1), and where instead of giving the large number of authorities every time, what the 2025 Act has done is that they have coined a term competent authority. Now that competent authority term is defined at a later stage, and that definition includes all these authorities. So we don't have to bother ourselves with reading the authority time and again. That is how the Act is streamlined. The competent authority, in consequence of information in his possession, has reason to believe. Now, this more or less has remained the same. Earlier also, it was a reason to believe which was there, and that too as a consequence of information in possession of the competent authority. Mind you, at this stage, let me very briefly indicate that reason to believe, insofar as the search actions are concerned, by and large, courts are very reluctant in going through the reason to believe whenever a search provision is or whenever a search action is challenged. The law is that there has to be existence of some material so as to reach to this reason to believe, because reason to believe, as we all know, that it's a subjective belief based on some objective criteria. And so long as those criteria exist, so long as there is some information, some investigation report, some confidential information is available in the file of the department, court would not intervene. And the moment the information is available, court would even not look at the sufficiency of that information. that whether that information is sufficient so as to carry out the search and seizure action. Court would say that yes, the moment there is some information, based on that a reasonable person can reach to this belief, matter is over. And therefore, more often than not, you would find that the challenges to a search action usually are not entertained by the high courts when it comes to judicial scrutiny. So also, whenever the information is there, that information again is not required to be tested on the judicial scrutiny. This, in fact, there is a provision under the old act as well as under the new act that this information, the reason to believe process, is not required to be disclosed before any authority, including the tribunal as well as the appellate authority. And to that extent, those authorities are barred from accessing the file, etc. It is only the High Court or the Supreme Court, in their capacity as a constitutional courts, can call for those files and go through the records. Then comes the first and second part. The first and second part, small Roman 1 and 2, they deal with issuance of summons calling for information. Part 2 says that the SSC would not have responded to any summons, etc., or would not have supplied the information, etc. Earlier, it was all tangible material. Now, even intangible material is also incorporated. I have highlighted the red underlined portion, that any information stored in any electronic media or a computer system. The same way that information is repeated in clause 2 as well. Part B, which is equivalent to clause C, which is usually the case, because it is never that the summons are issued and nobody complies with the summons, or someone has deliberately avoided the summons, etc. The searches are taking place. Usually it is part B of the new act or part C of the existing act, which would be relevant, that any person is in possession of any asset or information in relation to any asset, as pointed out by Honorable the departmental representative, that now even if you are not possessing the asset, so long as you have some information which is relevant for the purpose of that asset, which is undisclosed according to the department, or any information as regards any black money that is undisclosed foreign asset, etc., then the search action can be taken at your premises. So mind you, this is a provision, though it is in its operation maybe having a very innocent sounding addition, that is information in relation to any asset. But as a professional, you should keep in mind one aspect of the matter, that even if you have some information as regards undisclosed income of your client, namely some undisclosed assets of your client, which are all described in the section, then that information also can lead the department to a search and seizure action as to your premises as a professional. So even if you have some information, earlier it was only if you have undisclosed income, search would take place at your premises. Now, even if you are privy to some information, searches can take place at your premises. And therefore, as a professional, we should keep our hands extremely clean so as not to even carry any information as regards any undisclosed income or black money, etc. The approving authority again is the same, though it is explicitly spelled out under the existing act. Now it is defined somewhere else and also defined here under. Then comes the interesting aspect. Earlier, what happens once that information is there? There is a reason to believe. Then what? Then the search party can enter, search any building, place, vessel, vehicle, aircraft, where he has reason to suspect that such asset or books of accounts or other documents or any information stored in the electronic media or computer system are kept. So there are 4 physical places: building, place, vessel, vehicle, aircraft. So these are the places which are, again, in terms of bifurcation, they are all tangible places. These are physical places. However, there kindly mark the one difference, that is reason to suspect as against reason to believe. So if at all some building is there, then commissioner may not have that information that there is certainly a computer system there. He can only suspect that there is some record which is there, because you can't enter anybody's premises unless you write a search warrant. So therefore, the reason to suspect. However, what is important is that earlier it was assets, books of accounts or other documents. Now also includes electronic media in the computer system. Now, both these terms, electronic media, computer system, virtual digital place, virtual digital asset, all these things are defined at the bottom of the section. I'll be taking you in a moment to those definitions, because those definitions would be very relevant for our purposes in understanding the entire flavor of this new act. Then comes any person who is there is found to be in possession of all this electronic media. I have incorporated the relevant terms from the Information Technology Act. So communication devices, computer network, computer resources, computer system, electronic form, etc. Whatever that is there, and including we have to enable the department to access those things, including giving them the various access code, password for the social media accounts, passwords for the internet email accounts, password for any file which is encrypted, or in case if you have any cloud account where you are storing the data, you have to enable the departmental officer to inspect them and take out the necessary details from there. Then comes the part where if you do not cooperate or something is locked, you say that, sir, I do not have the key, this, that, etc. They can break lock, door, box, safe deposit, almara, etc. and gain access, including to the electronic devices by overriding access code, resetting the password, resetting the access mechanism to the computer system, etc. And in that includes not only your computer system, which is physically there, but whatever data that you have in the cloud, that is also included over here. Then comes the usual search provisions, which makes the entire search workable. These are all the provisions which would make the search workable. That supposing at the time of carrying out of the search, if someone is entering your house or someone is entering your office, someone is exiting from the office, then all those persons can also be questioned. They can be detained, and their respective statements can also be recorded. Mark of identification, etc. can be placed on various assets. Notes, etc. can be prepared, and seize any books of accounts, other documents, computer system, or assets. However, what cannot be seized is a stock in trade which is in your business. Supposing you are a jeweler, and if a search is taking place, then if jewelry is your stock in trade, then maybe it is valuable because it covers under the money, bullion, jewelry, or valuable article. But then also the courts have said, and ultimately adopted by the parliament, that in so long as it is a stock in trade, you cannot seize it, because that would again create a lot of inconvenience to the SSC. So same flavor is continued. Stock in trade cannot be now even under the new act also, it cannot be subject matter of seizure. Then the person who is otherwise not the owner but found to be in possession of the asset, etc., the mechanism is provided. If at all any building, etc., which is not falling within the jurisdiction of a particular commissioner, but if during the search, if it is felt that that place is required to be covered under the search, then even without jurisdiction, commissioner can write a warrant and enter those premises. Any subsection 3 again is where commissioner has a reason to believe that in any place, namely the 4 places that we have earlier pointed out, those are tangible places, namely building, place, vessel, vehicle, or aircraft, which is not mentioned in the authorization, and where there is a reasonable belief that there is something which is there, including the electronic media, computer system, etc., is there, then those buildings, place, vessels, vehicle, aircraft can be covered, even if there is no search warrant which is there. Again, this here is one observation is that only the building, place, vessel, vehicle, or aircraft are covered. So supposing if during the course of the search, if at all those physical places are not there, but there is some information as regards some virtual place, namely some cloud data, which is not accessed from the place which is under subject matter of search and survey action, then whether those places would be covered or not, again, there is some gray area, because here what they talk about is authority to cover the building, place, vessel, vehicle, or aircraft, and not something which is not named, namely a virtual place or a computer system or a cloud database which is not accessed from the computer system which is lying in the search premise. Then I have already explained the explanation. Subclause 4, that it is not practicable to seize any books of accounts, other documents, computer system, asset, etc., now includes bank locker and bank account, etc., which was not there earlier. I'm sure my learned other co-speaker has already pointed this out, that this was just a lacuna which was there. Now it is ironed out by the department. And thereafter, again, all these provisions, namely that the examination of a person who is found to be there under oath is very much there, 132(4). Correspondingly, now we have a provision under subclause 6, wherein this power is given. The power flows in the same manner as it was earlier there. And these are all the statements which are recorded under oath. Therefore, a person has to give the correct answer. In case of perjury, it is a punishable crime. In any case, it has a great evidentiary value because it is given under an oath. Of 4A, again, the presumption is there that whatever that is found out, that if at all a person is in possession of books of accounts, other documents, etc., then the search party would believe that the contents of those books of accounts and such other things which are there is A, the ownership is of the person who is in possession, B, the contents thereof are true and correct. Now, the same thing goes for even the computer systems, virtual digital space, and all other data which is in possession of a particular individual, particular person. Whatever that is there is found to be A, the ownership of the person is presumed, and secondly, whatever are the contents, they are all presumed to be correct. So, large number of emails, chats, even if your social media posting, everything which is there by way of a computer system or a virtual digital place, everything would be A, presumed to be in your possession. Therefore, you are the owner of all those chats, contents, emails, database, etc. And everything which is written over there is presumed to be true and correct. Therefore, if you post anything boasting about yourself that I own a BMW on a digital media, and ultimately if that is accessed by the department would presume that yes, you are the owner of a particular car or a particular wealth which you are displaying to the others on the social media, and then the burden is on you to discharge that how this is not coming within your ownership. What is again coming out in clause D is that the every electronic media, data, communication, etc., would be presumed to be exchanged between the parties there too. Again, there a small hiccup in terms of 65B of the Evidence Act is there. And probably department would, again, the moment it is seized, the department would be sending it to the forensic laboratory. And 65B section says that in case if at all any social media or any digital data is to be believed, then that has to pass the test of 65B of the Evidence Act, and department would pass that test over there. Other than that, except for renumbering and realigning, I don't see much of a change in the search process or the provisions relating to the search. Requisition power again are the same except addition of electronic media or computer system. Let me indicate what is a requisition. Requisition by and large is that whenever a third party law enforcement agencies, they are in possession of some books of accounts, some other material, some asset, which according to them is not duly disclosed to the department, they involve the department, they hand over the money, etc. to the income tax department under section 132A. So GST department during their search, if they find some huge cash, then GST of course does not have the authority to seize the cash. Therefore, they'll call the income tax department and hand over the cash, ornaments, anything which is according to them is suspicious. Or in a random vehicle check, police finds that there is some cash which is there in the boot of a car. They will call the income tax department, hand it over. Now, in the same spirit, we have electronic media or a computer system which is again taken into custody by an officer or authority under any other law in force, and probably they will hand over the entire thing to the income tax department. So instead of physical tangible assets are covered earlier, now even the intangibles, namely a computer system, a database, or a hard drive, etc., also are covered. And the same can be handed over. Again, the same would be used for the purpose of carrying out further investigations and inquiries. 249, I mentioned that reason not to be disclosed to any authority, including the appellate tribunal, etc. Copy is permissible, and authorized officer has to hand over the search party has to hand over the books of accounts, etc., to the concerned assessing officer having jurisdiction of the concerned person. The date or the time which is consumed, etc., I'll cover when I go to the block assessment. 132B, again, the application of the seize or requisition assets, how seize assets in the search or under 132A proceedings can be applied. The law has more or less remained the same, that if you apply, if there are any seize assets, you apply that first to the existing liabilities. If anything survives, you give it back to the SSC. However, the proviso or the final reading is that in case if the SSC makes an application within 30 days from the end of the month in which the seizure or requisition takes place, along with the proof that the entire asset is explainable to the satisfaction of the AO, then AO has to again pass an order within a period of 120 days and dispose of that application. In case of any failure on the part of the AO in not disposing of the assets, then an adverse presumption would be drawn. So that law continues and that survives even after the introduction of the. Now, what is more interesting, in fact, the most interesting part of the new provision is 261, the interpretation. There you would find the terms which are very interesting. Computer system means computer system, computer network, computer resources, communication devices, digital electronic data storage devices used on a standalone mode, part of a computer system, linked through a network, utilized through intermediaries for information creation or processing or storage or exchange, and includes remote server or cloud server or virtual digital space. Now, virtual digital space is again defined little later. Yes. Virtual digital space means an environment, area, realm which is constructed experience through computer technology, not the physical tangible world, which encompasses any digital realm that allows user to interact, communicate, and platform activities using computer system, computer network, computer resources, communication devices, cyberspace, internet, world wide web, and emerging technologies using data and information in the electronic form for the creation, storage, exchange, and includes email, social media, online investment account, website for storing details of ownership of any assets, remote server, cloud servers, digital application form, and any other space of similar nature. I'm not much of a technology person, but by reading this, what I can understand is there is nothing which is left undone. So in case if anything is there in the cloud, anything is there in 0 and 1 format, that is in the digital format, then probably this definition would cover it. And therefore, don't remain under the impression that, sir, my data is somewhere safe. My server is out of India, as indicated by the Honorable Departmental Representative, or my social media account is secret, my cloud account is so secret that there is nothing which can be deciphered. All these things are things of the past. Now, Big Brother is watching. Keep yourself under control and do not try to play mischief on any of this. In fact, one of the incidents where there were provisions which were challenged, and during the course of that investigation, what had come out was that there was this cloud storage facility which was availed of by the SSC. And SSC was so smart that there was no stress. He would never access those spaces from regular web browsers. He would use a browser which, the moment you shut it, it deletes all the cookies, all other information, and therefore there was not even an iota of evidence in any of the systems. However, what caught the attention of the search team was that in the credit card statement, there was a regular debit of this particular web storage, because you have to ultimately make a payment to them for the purpose of availing the web storage. And that has ultimately led them to this facility. So in this digital world, there is nothing which is secret, and therefore you would never try to play mischief. With this, friends, search and survey actions are over. Well, I would leave with before concluding, there are one or two aspects which I leave for the consumption of the audience. Search and survey has always been a subject matter of huge debate, right from the inception 1961 Act until 2025 Act. One school of thought is that search and survey action is an invasion of privacy, and therefore, unless the situation demands, such a power should not be given to any authority, much less income tax authorities. Another school of thought is that, sir, we are a country, we are a developing nation, we need money for the purpose of running the country, and therefore we need honest taxpayers. If the honesty does not come voluntarily, then these are the measures which we want to use for the purpose of making our citizens honest. And therefore, every action so as to generate the revenue, so as to honor those undisclosed black money and collect the revenue is justified insofar as the development of the nation is concerned. Striking a balance between the two has always been a subject matter of huge debate. And no one is right, no one is wrong. And then there are cases and cases, and you would find there are judgments and judgments. But then there are two recent developments which are having an interesting say on this. One development we have already dealt with, that is 2025 Act, including all this digital data, etc. The second is two school of thought and two significant development. One is the formulation of DPDP Act 2023, and now the rules are also introduced. And therefore, that the digital personal data protection law, how far that law is in conflict with income tax department, again, the courts will throw some light in days to come. That is going to be an interesting debate. Second is the right to privacy now becoming a fundamental right, that 2017-10 SCC page 1, Puttaswamy's case, and the fallout, that to what extent the invasion of privacy is justified, and that too in the digital sphere, is something which is again going to create an interesting debate in the days to come, that to what extent access is required to be given, to what extent access is required to be kept with the SSCs. However, looking to the positive attitude of the income tax department in streamlining the process and coming out with a very digestible act, I'm very sure that in days to come, this debate will attain some finality insofar as our tax laws are concerned. So with this, friends, let us go to the survey provisions. Let me open another file which would cover survey provisions. Survey, again, there is not much of a change, except even under the survey also, there is something which is now covered, and that is all this virtual digital place as well as the computer system. So that is something which is covered. Kindly mark, irrespective of anything contained in any other provision, an income tax authority may enter any place. Here, that reason to believe is not there. These are all the powers which are, again, there are a large number of checks and balances which are there within the departmental mechanism itself. They have strict SOPs insofar as carrying out of survey is concerned, and the legislature, namely the parliament, as well as the higher ups in CBDT, they are conscious of the fact that these provisions can be misused, and therefore they have very rightly laid down a very strict SOP insofar as the assumption of jurisdiction under survey is concerned. The exercise of power is very, very rare. However, there is no such reason to believe which is coming over here. And then the power of survey, appreciate this, that when the survey provisions originally were introduced, at that point in time, there was no such thing as computer system, computer space, digital, virtual digital space, etc. There was two different set of places. One was the office place, which was purely used for business purposes. Another was a residential place, which was for the purpose of residing. In fact, survey provisions also say that if you are carrying out the business from residence, then it can be subject matter of survey. However, the survey all the while was having a flavor that the survey action can take place during office hours at office premises, covering your business activities. However, now that thin line has disappeared. That line has disappeared for the simple reason that now everyone carries everything in their handheld devices or in their computer system. In the very same desktop computer that I have in my office, I have one email ID which is covering the official emails, another email ID which is covering my personal emails. And therefore, the personal data, personal files, everything is available across every system which is there. And therefore, that thin line has disappeared. That office means only official, residence means only residence, and that the provisions of survey, when they were enacted, this was in a two different compartments. Now those compartments have merged, and everything has become very kind of a mixed bags of information. So to what extent what is covered and what is not covered, because survey is strictly for the purpose of finding out the business activities, and they can create copies of your documents, books of accounts, and other things which are there in the business premises. But in the same system, if there are other copies, there are other emails, then to what extent that compartmentalization now would survive, again, is going to be an interesting debate in the days to come. And except for that, computer system is added now, electronic media is added, those words are added, I have highlighted them, and those can be accessed during the office hours by the income tax authority. Copies can be taken, and your statement now can be recorded under oath. And that, because it is recorded under oath, it will have evidentiary value, as discussed by the learned departmental representative, that this again would be used for the purpose of evidences in the assessment that is to follow after the survey process are concerned. Other than that, I don't see much of changes which are worth discussing. So we can now go straightway to the block assessment scheme. Let me share the third file of block assessment. Block assessment, again, if I can just go to the history, let us look at the history of the block, and you would find that there is one interesting thing which would come out, that the block was originally introduced in 1995, Chapter 14B, which was effective from 1/7/1995. Originally, it was for 10 years, which was reduced to 6 years with effect from 2001. The entire scheme was scrapped, and at that time, again, there was a buzz that this block assessment scheme has unnecessarily created a large number of litigation. We come back to the scheme, which was known as 153 ABC scheme, where there was this regular assessment, which was doing rounds for the purpose of search related cases with effect from 1/6/2003. Again, we see a lot of litigation happening there, and therefore this 153 ABC scheme was scrapped, and in its place all the search related assessments were clubbed under 147, 148 with effect from 1st April 2021. Again, with effect from 2024, Finance Act number 2, we brought back the block assessment scheme. And mind you, the present block is not old block in a new bottle. It is an amalgam of the old block as well as 153 ABC mechanism. And now, once again, we have a scheme which is a amalgamation of the old block scheme as well as 153 ABC scheme, and both of them put together. Now, with effect from 1/4/2026, we will see the old scheme, which was there right from 1/9/2024, converted into 1/4/2026 scheme. So 1961's Act has this block assessment scheme with effect from 1/9/2024 is now converted into a new scheme, and you would find that under the new Act, the flavor of the old Act is maintained. In fact, there are some changes I'll point out when we hurriedly go through the entire scheme. But there are changes which are very minimal. And other than that, the entire heart of the matter, the flavor has been retained of the old scheme as well. The first change which I find is the interpretation section. Block is again more or less the same. Requisition search is under 247. Last of the authorization executed is something which is you would find having a word which is added, which are added are irrespective of whether or not the seizure is recorded in such Panchnama. So what is it? What is the significance of this? Look, earlier the debate, the legal issue was that when the search can be said to have ended. The definition says that whenever the last of the Panchnama is drawn, then the search can be said to have ended at that premises. Then one school of thought or one litigation arose that, sir, what if the last Panchnama is delayed purely for the purpose of getting additional time? And if there is no effective purpose of that Panchnama for extension of time, what if that is the situation? Courts have taken a view. I have cited a couple of judgments on the right hand side. You would find the note which is appearing on the screen. Courts have taken a view that, sir, in case if the the search is delayed and the last Panchanama is delayed only for the purpose of getting additional time, and in that Panchanama which is drawn the last, if there is no seizure, then there is no effective purpose of those Panchanamas and therefore they can be ignored. And that is how some of the judgments wherein the view that is taken is that the block assessment itself is now beyond the time and therefore required to be cost and set aside. In that view of the matter, now the parliament has introduced these words that irrespective of whether or not any seizure is recorded in such Panchanama. So is to take care of this situation, that it is the prerogative of the search party when to extend the search, when to draw the last Panchanama, and it is not necessary that each and every Panchanama which is postponed, which is drawn at a later date, must have some seizure recorded in such Panchanama. So even if it is not there, there is no question of then challenging the limitation on that ground, and that is how these judgments are taken care of. Undisclosed income will now include, of course, virtual digital asset, which was already there in the old scheme, that is the existing one. Again, the word incorrect, earlier this word incorrect was not there under the old scheme. The word was false. So what is happening is that any expense, exemption, deduction or allowance, if it is found to be false, then it used to add the undisclosed income part of the block assessment under the old block scheme, which was there between 1995 and 2003. However, the new block scheme already had the word incorrect here. However, the interpretation of incorrect and false is, I have highlighted that false means a deliberate act, a deliberate, willful misrepresentation of any expense, exemption, deduction, or allowance. An incorrect claim would also cover even an illegal claim or a claim which is not legally justifiable. So incorrect is again having a wider implication when it is in juxtaposition to fraud. Two words are put side by side. Fraud will have a more sinister flavor, and that would include only few transactions, whereas incorrect claim is a wider term, would include large number of transactions which are later on questioned. And even if it is let's say it is a debatable issue, one can say that it is an incorrect claim. Notwithstanding is replaced with irrespective. I have already covered this part of the debate in my first opening lecture itself. Therefore, I am not bothering to once again discuss that. Again, assessing officer shall proceed to assess or reassess the total undisclosed income for the block period as per the provisions of this part. So total undisclosed income, as I have stated earlier, the mechanism I'll take you in a moment, would include both income which is already there at the time of search, which is found from the search exercise, which is disclosed by the SSE, and what is found out during the course of the framing of the block assessment. Everything would be put together and undisclosed income assessment would take place. All pending assessment would abate, because abatement provision is more or less the same. So for the block period which is covered by the search, anything which is pending, all those pending proceedings falling within the block period would abate, and only a single one assessment would take place. So the same methodology, that insofar as abated assessments are concerned, they are amalgam of both the normal assessment as well as the undisclosed income assessment, whereas the unabated assessments are assessment which are strictly speaking only for the purpose of undisclosed income. TP abatement again would have a different flavor. Subsection 4 talks about the second search. So if your first search assessment is going on and if you do not improve, second search takes place, then in so long as the first assessments are pending, your limitation gets extended. Thereafter, department gets 3 months to finish them. In case if for some technical reason, if the block assessment is set aside caused by the appellate authority, the revival of the abated assessment, again the same as the old scheme, then rest of the search year is normal assessment. That therefore the cutoff date is up to the date of search. If supposing if today the search takes place, then this period 22nd January is covered in the block period. 23rd January onward, because if presuming that search ends today itself, then 23rd January onwards everything would be covered under the normal assessment. And total undisclosed income would be taxed, that is at the rate of 60% plus surcharge that is defined under 192. And surcharge would be the normal surcharge which is there in the each and every finance act. This, remember this, because we'll have some discussion on this part, namely what is the significance of this rate of tax. Then comes the computation of total undisclosed income for the block period. Again, the mechanism remains the same. There are two components. Component A, undisclosed income declared in the return. So something if I offer on my own, that would be taken as undisclosed income, and something which is added by the assessing officer under subclause 4. So both this would combined manner create the total undisclosed income. Then comes what is it that is not included in the block assessment? Because block is ultimately to determine the undisclosed income. So if something is already offered to tax, then certainly that cannot be once again taxed as a block income. What is something which is forming part of the assessment, which is something which is already assessed prior to the initiation of date of search. Mark this word, initiation of the search, not the completion of the search. So prior to initiation, if at all any assessment is already framed, then those income is to be kept outside the purview of the block assessment. Second, any income which is already returned, which is there in the return of income, again that return of income is filed prior to the date of search. In the Income Tax Act 2025 bill, which was circulated, this prior to the date of initiation of the search was not mentioned, and therefore it would give a meaning that anything which is disclosed even after the search, if you file the return of income, it goes outside the purview of the block. And at that time, probably this was realized. So now in the Act of 2025, prior to the date of search is there. So any return which is filed prior to the date of search to be taken outside the purview of the block. Then comes the broken period. So supposing if at all the search takes place in the month of June, the tax year is already over. However, the due date of filing of return is due on 30th of September. Then to that extent, whatever is found to be recorded in the regular books of accounts, maintained in the regular manner, that income again would be taken outside the purview of the block assessment. Then the second part, which is outside the purview of the block assessment, is 1st April till the date of search. If this is the income again found to be recorded duly in the regular books of accounts, taken out. And during the search income, supposing during search remains in force, the search lasts for a month, and that month, if at all anything is earned during that month, then that again, if at all it is regular transaction, duly found recorded in the books, taken outside the purview of the block assessment. Then the income, which is again something which is already there is no need for filing the return of income, and those income, if you can demonstrate that they are falling within this exempt clause where there is no need to file the income outside the purview of the search. The earlier C clause, namely the 3 income maintained in the regular course of business or regular books of accounts, that is subject to AO's satisfaction. AO believes that no, this is, you are making a story. This is something which you never intended to show to the department. Probably they go outside the purview of the regular income and enter the undisclosed income. Subsection 4 gives a mechanism, whatever that is there, evidence which are found during the search and survey or requisition, they would be certainly pressed into service for the purpose of framing the assessment. And what clause B, any other material or information is either available with the assessing officer or comes to his notice during the course of the proceedings under Part B. Part B is a block assessment scheme. So something which is already there. Supposing you have made a claim of an interest expenditure, and during the course of the assessment proceedings, AO believes that that interest expenditure is not allowable because the money is not used for the purpose of business, or according to him, this has been diverted to some other giving loans, etc., to non-business purposes to your associate concerns. If at all it comes to his notice during that period, then probably he can, as a matter of fact, add this amount, disallow this interest while framing the block assessment. Again, the old controversy which we saw by Abhisar Buildware, that we thought that it is settled, again would rise, that whether this item which is of a regular nature, can it be covered under the block scheme or no? Again, an interesting debate will arise. And ultimately someday some court in India, at least it is the Supreme Court of India, will decide this issue. Till that point in time, as the scheme reads today, probably it appears that department can do it, and department is going to do it. Then comes the international transaction which are covered, which would be decided in a separate manner. We are not, because that's a process is the same. Partnership income, etc., is how it is to be decided, is the same process, that the income in the firm is before allowing deduction, etc. 69 ABC and part, and 68 again will have a reference to financial year, would be construed as a reference to block tax year falling within the block period. Then comes the interesting aspect of carry forward and set off of losses. So for the block period, you don't carry forward and set off the losses. So at the beginning of the block period, whatever losses are there, lock, stock and barrel, they are lifted from there, and they are at the end of the block period, they are once again added. So you, for the block period, as if the losses are not there, you ignore the losses, and those losses cannot be set off against the undisclosed income. That is the scheme. Again, it was taken from the old scheme, including the old block assessment was also having the more or less the same flavor. Procedure for a block assessment is the same. Procedure is probably, you would find that more or less the process has remained the same, and the block assessment is to be framed in a manner which we are familiar with, namely 158 BC. So once the search takes place, a return of a notice would be issued to you, calling upon you to file your return of income within the specified time, 60 days namely. And if you file that return of income, it will be taken into consideration. If you disclose some additional income, again, you will get some benefit insofar as levy of penalty is concerned. If you fail to furnish the return of income within this defined period, then that they will be treated as if you have not filed the return of income. Your return of income is, if at all that return of income is filed, it will be treated as a return which is filed in the due course. The return of income cannot be revised. That return of income is something which is a return which is required to be, for the purpose of all practical purposes, it is required to be processed, and there would not be any notice under section 280, namely the reopening notice, which is required to be issued to you. Scrutiny assessment notice is required to be issued as used to happen under the existing scheme, namely 158 BC read with 143(2). Now under the new scheme also the same flavor has continued, and scrutiny assessment notice is required to be issued. The determination of the block assessment is a process where all these evidences would be taken into consideration, and the assessment would be framed in the manner which is appearing in the earlier section. The issuance of notice and framing of assessment all are after taking approval from the appropriate authority, and appropriate authority again is defined, more or less it has remained the same. Therefore, moving on to the next section, that is 295 equivalent to 158 BD. It's a third party action, a search taking place at a particular person, and during that search, if there is any undisclosed income belonging to or pertaining to or relating to any other person is found out, then that person's assessment can be revisited under the proposed section 295 of the Act. The language is the same, that undisclosed income which is belonging to, pertains to or relate to. Therefore, the scope is the widest. Earlier that debate was that belong to as a flavor of ownership, whereas pertain to or relate to is something which is much wider. All the three words are there. What is again coming out is that unlike 153C scheme, where there is a double satisfaction, which was there even under 158 BD of the old block scheme, the new block scheme as it is existing in the present act, as well also in the proposed act of 2025, they have done away with the second part of the satisfaction, namely the satisfaction of the assessing officer of the other person. So now we have only one satisfaction, and that satisfaction is of the assessing officer of the search person. The moment he says that, yes, I am satisfied that this money, bullion, jewelry, or virtual digital asset, etc., or any documents or books of accounts, etc., is belonging to, pertaining to, or relating to some other person, then that satisfaction itself is valid. The assessing officer of the other person has to simply issue the notice he has not to record any further satisfaction, unlike 153C, where he has to record the satisfaction that such material has a bearing on the computation of income of the assessee on a year-to-year basis. Here is a case where that system is now given a go-by. So the moment there is something which is found out from a search belonging to a third party assessee, the satisfaction of the search assessing officer is of paramount importance. Again, unlike like the old scheme, here also there is no limitation which is prescribed. Under the old law, Calcutta Knitwear, thereafter followed by the board circular, there were some limitations which were prescribed that within a reasonable time, and that reasonable time was again time and again interpreted by the courts. And there was, in a way, some consensus insofar as the initiation action of 153C or 158BD was there. Now again, under the new law, there is no such time limit which is prescribed. However, there is a time limit which is prescribed for completing this process. I'll take you when I go to 158BE equivalent procedure. Then comes the part 2, subsection 2 says that whenever any such third party assessments are reopened, then the block period would remain the same for that third party vis-a-vis the search person. In fact, the whole thing has a genesis in the judgment of Justice Singh. Justice Singh, the Supreme Court took the view that in case of a third party, the search would be deemed to be the date on which the record or the material, which is the basis for this satisfaction, is passed on, handed over to the assessing officer of that third party. And therefore, the block period would significantly differ if there is a passage of time, let's say 2 years or 3 years between the original search and handing over the relevant material to the third party AO, then the block period would vary significantly. Supreme Court has upheld that view. Now Parliament has amended that, which is again amendment took place in 2024 Act itself, and that is continued in 2025, that the block period insofar as third party is concerned would remain the same. However, the abatement would be different, and that is again specified under clause 3. Clause B of the subclause 2 says that if there are more than one search party, and then the search party which is having the latest in terms of block period would be picked up, namely the block period which is ending the latest in the hands of the multiple search parties would be picked up as a block period for that third party. Subclause 3 again is something where they clarify that insofar as the abatement is concerned, that abatement would take place when the material is handed over, again relating to the block period itself. Therefore, the date of search and the block period would remain the same. The date of abatement would vary as and when the material is handed over. Time limit, completion. The very one significant amendment is, first part is that the block assessment is required to be framed within a period of 12 months from the end of the quarter. So end of the quarter, you have to compute that 12 months would be the last date for the purpose of framing the block assessment. So you have to count the last authorization from the date of the search, go to the next available quarter, and from there start counting the 12 months. However, when you are counting the 12 months, go to subsection 3. Subsection 3 says that computing the period of limitation under subsection 1, a period not exceeding 180 days, commencing from the date of search or initiation, etc., where the investigation wing hands over the books of account material to the assessing authority. So basically, investigation wing is given a period of 6 months to process it, and within that period of 6 months, they have to hand over the material to the assessing officer. If anything beyond 6 months, they are eating into the time of the assessing authority. Anything within 6 months, again, that period, whatever that is consumed by the investigation wing, that will be reduced while computing the period of 12 months. In fact, this is a very practical move because many a times that the handing over of the record itself would take significant time, and that would eat away in the time for the purpose of framing the assessment. So therefore, this in a way, it is a breather which is given to the assessing authority. However, this time limit, that anything beyond 6 months is not extendable, again is going to create a problem insofar as third party investigation is concerned. Any requisition from ED, CBI, etc., and if they take more than 6 months to hand over the record, then probably they are eating into the time of the assessing authority. And that probably appropriately it will have to be modified so as to give more breathing time to the assessing officer. In case if any other authority takes more time, then there is no fault of the assessing authority. And therefore, that amendment probably can be made in the forthcoming finance acts. Then comes the limitation is you have to compare the limitation again 158 BD, that is equivalent to 295 third party assessment. I indicated that the initiation limitation is not there, however the conclusion limitation is there, and that conclusion is as and when the notice is issued pursuant to 295 action under 294, you will have to again start, the clock starts from there, and the assessment will have to be framed from the period for the period of within the period of 12 months from the end of the quarter in which 294 notice is issued. Rest of the scheme remains as it is because all provisions are bodily lifted, and they are now there, of course, with some change in the language, which is now made more palatable. Interest is the same, a levy of interest, penalty is the same, and that would take me probably to one or two issues which are relevant before I conclude at 6:45, my given time limit. Abhisar we have already discussed, therefore I am not once again revisiting. Chapter 6, a deduction, exemption and other incentives. What if, supposing during the search, if it is found out that I have done some unaccounted production in my factory, and that unaccounted production is now required to be taxed. What if it is found out that that factory is eligible for deduction under chapter 10A or under section 10AA or any other exemption section where the additional deduction is available? If at all any such deduction is there in the statute book once the new act comes into play, or supposing if it is found out that 115 BAA or BAB, where the concessional rate of tax is there and the clandestine production is coming from those parties, those factories, and it is being sold by a different entity, can that concessional rate benefit be given as a fresh claim in the block assessment? Under the old block assessment scheme, this was a well settled principle of law, that ultimately the whole idea of a block assessment is to assess the correct income in the hands of the correct assessee. And in order to assess the correct income, any deduction, exemption which is otherwise assessee is entitled to can always be given. And even if it is amounting to fresh claim, courts have considered the Sun Engineering judgment, and there also, after considering all those judgments, they have appreciated that so long as the income is not reduced into a negative income, namely while in the guise of block assessment, if I am allowing more losses or more benefit to the SSA, so long as that is not done, all these deduction, exemptions and incentives can be granted. Then comes 292 read with 192 versus 195. Look, 292 is equivalent to the 60% tax provision of 192 is a rate at the rate of 60% for the search assessment, which is flowing from 292. So any search income, block income, is to be taxed at the 60% flat rate plus surcharge applicable at that point in time. Compare that with 195. 195 is 115 BBE of the present day. 115 BBE of the present day is where the taxes are 60% plus 25% surcharge on that 60%. Effective rate of tax is 75%. Block says that you have to necessarily assess me at 60 plus surcharge. Now that surcharge, pending the finance bill, etc., is not defined. Today, we have a controversy that, sir, if section 68 edition is made, am I to be taxed at 75% rate or at a concessional rate of 60% in the block assessment? And that controversy would probably continue even in the days to come when the new block assessment scheme would be there. All those additions under 68 and 69 parts will attract 115 BBE or equivalent to 195 of the 2025 Act. We'll have this debate because certainly the Parliament never intended to give this additional benefit by way of block assessment. Then what is the role of presumption insofar as block is concerned? Because block is always on the basis of evidences. So can there be a presumption if evidence is found for 2 months from a year and there is a consistent pattern that SSE is in the habit of selling 20% of its turnover outside the books of accounts, then can that presumption be carried over for entire block period, namely for the entire 10 years? Again, in the days to come, this controversy will have to be settled by the court. Under the old block scheme, this was settled by various high courts across the country that block assessments are purely based on evidences, and there is no place for any presumption insofar as block assessment is concerned. Again, there are a large number of procedural and implementation issues would be there, but as a nation, we must stand and support the income tax department in implementing this new assessment scheme without finding any technical faults and without fighting or filing cases in the court of law. As an honest citizen, we must pay our taxes religiously and support the department in implementing this scheme wholeheartedly. Because look at the intention. Intention is to make the citizen's life easier. If that is the intention of the government, as a citizen, we also must reciprocate and pay the taxes, in fact, more taxes than what is demanded. With this, friends, I conclude my presentation within the given time. It is 18:45, and I hand over the stage to uh, the MOC, Rituji. Before that, I again, once again, thank the entire DTC committee, including Piyush Bhai, Vishnu Bhai. I take note of the presence of the departmental representative and all my CA friends for spending their valuable time in listening to me. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. Over to you, Ritubhen.
Sir, we have two, three queries. So, sir, someone is asking how many years record to be kept for such as assessment.
How many years record is required to be kept for such assessment? It is
Yeah.
the 6 years. Ideally, it is 8 years as per the old law, rule of the under the Income Tax Act.
Okay. I think so. One question you have already explained. Can you elaborate on topic of block assessment regarding Panchnama thing? So I
That I
think
have
you
covered during my
already
presentation.
covered that. Yeah. So thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful, comprehensive, and practice oriented presentation. Your in depth analysis has provided exceptional clarity on complex aspects of survey, search, and search induced assessments, and has greatly enriched the learning of our participants. I thank all the dignitaries, speaker, and participants for this wonderful session, for being with us. And I thank to the DTC committee as well for giving this opportunity and organizing this wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Yes.